Vaughn, Amber Smith. These are American heroes, and working together with them, it's been an honor. So that's been part of the fight, and it's ongoing. I'm still part of that, and we've been doing some great things. I encourage everybody to check that out. It's cv4a.org, and just kind of come in and take a look and see what we're doing.
I love how Jason gets all the plugs in too. You're a total pro at this now, man. You're doing so great, and it turns out that on this path that you're traveling on, it brought you to participating on the main stage. You know, as they say in Vegas, you're playing the big room at the RNC. Tell us how that happened.
You know, it's remarkable. Knowing some of these people, you put a lot of work into being a good soldier. You know, when the mission calls for a soldier to go out and do the work, you're standing in the breach ready to go. And so the people, I think, have to have a trust in you. And there was an occasion that came up that they were looking for a veteran that could fill a particular role, and had to also have the ability to kind of communicate the message that I think was part of the overall theme, Defense of America. And some of the people that I've, we'll call, bled it out or sweated it out in the trenches with, picked up the phone and said, is this something you'd be willing to do? And the answer for me is the same answer I pretty much give on any call to action, which is send me. Yes, you know, if it's something that someone is relying on you for, I take that trust very seriously, and want to do my best to live up to it. So it was a wonderful thing, but it's a little bit of who you know, but it's also a lot of bleeding out together and pouring your heart out on stage after stage with different audiences, and making sure people really know, hey, you mean this. This is not fake. It's not some kind of a phony thing. And so that kind of trust gets you sometimes get you the call. So a very, very, very incredible story, and again, humbled to be there.
Well, the authenticity definitely came through in your remarks to the RNC, and you know, I watched it before getting on the phone with you, and you know, you did a tremendous job, better the job than I would have ever done. And I find that the crowd is responding more to non-politicians on the stage. You mentioned Marcus Luttrell, yourself included. Tell me the mood that you're feeling at RNC, because a lot of the portrayal of it on mainstream media is chaotic, combative. What are you seeing?
It's so strange to see that from the inside. It looks very much different than what it looks like from the outside. The media perspective is, you know, find what's bleeding, find what's, you know, tumultuous, and then focus on that. And a Secret Service guy made a great comment. He said the press and the protesters are codependents, you know, and so they depend on each other to live. And what we saw is, I walked into the floor, and it's an incredible atmosphere. People are excited. The kerfuffle, if you will, that happens in there is small enough that it did not prevail, and it did not impact the overall mood. I thought by 7 o'clock, when I was seated at the VIP box with the Bob Dole and Senator Dole, it was a great atmosphere, and there was no hostility. So when I come back and I watch the news reports, and you're seeing how this was a dramatic day, and you know, everything was exploding, it just didn't appear that way from the ground in. And I talked with some folks over at the RNC too, who in the middle of a press person, if I named him, you would know exactly who he was, walked over and was very focused on the drama that he was anticipating that was going to happen in this fight. And I was looking at the RNC rep who was kind of looking at him like, yeah, of course, you know, we're going to look for that, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. She was trying to kind of diffuse it, but the press person was really interested in kind of building it up. We walked away, and the RNC person was very frank with me and just said, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Obviously, they've got their concerns. They're going to flesh them out, but they don't have the numbers, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what it was. It was a small little dramatic flare. The press focused on it, and I'm amazed at how much of the story today is about that. So very interesting to see it from the inside, and different than what it looks like, I think, from the press perspective.
All right. Well, listen, the one thing we definitely want to get the word out about is your new project, and I was on the website earlier. of course, we're talking about the underground movement. Tell everybody what that is. It's really exciting stuff, and it's one of the coolest things I've seen in a while.
We love America. And my business partner and I, Special Forces, were Green Berets that knew that if our fights overseas, were for freedom and democracy in Iraq or Afghanistan or Africa, we didn't want to come home to America and lose the fight there for our culture, our history. Who is America? How did she become the greatest country in the world? What's happened in the past, 20, 30 years maybe, we've been dismissive of our heroes. We've been taking our legends and the stories of adventure that made this country great, from whether it was a Daniel Boone or Paul Revere's Midnight Ride or George Washington as a revolutionary, Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, the great stories of men like the Flying Tigers or maybe the Tuskegee Airmen. Those are things that made this country exactly what it is. So we captured those, and we wanted to do it in a way that's competitive and brand-oriented. So you get your Abercrombie or your Hollister-like kid who just wants to wear great clothing, but we wanted to put a message to that clothing, and that message is this country is the greatest country in the history of the world, and here's how we got there. So we put the heroes, we put the stories on beautiful premium apparel, cut and sewn, a lot of it here in the Carolinas. We do a whole Carolina-made line of T-shirts and hats and hoodies that are just beautiful fabrics, and we tried to get the most premium material because we want the customers to have the best shirt in their locker, the best shirt in their closet, and then we wanted to pair that with very cool kind of updated aesthetics and graphics that spell out America's beautiful legacies. So that's what the underground movement is. We love to make sure that our heroes aren't forgotten, but we know it has to be sexy. We know it has to meet with the kids that are out there today, going to the clubs or hanging out. You don't necessarily want to wear that red, white, and blue, I love America flag and then run into your college campus, because it's just not that cool, as glorious as it is. We have to build it better, and that's what we're doing at the underground movement. That's our challenge.
It's a great. I'm actually browsing the site and looking to see what I want to buy while I'm listening. The George Washington shirt is just awesome. The Teddy Roosevelt Rough Rider shirt that I looked at before is great as well. Folks, www.tumshirts.com. Go there right now. Check that out. One last question before I let you go, Jason. And I appreciate you giving me all this time to talk while you're in Cleveland. Have you run into Donald Trump? Have you exchanged any words with him? And if so, what were your impressions? And even if not, what are your impressions of him and what's going on at the RNC?
Great question. Here I have not. I have met him on a previous occasion, and my impression is, number one, he's a big man that lives big, but with that space that he occupies, what's remarkable is he's connective. He knows how to connect to people, even though he's kind of living larger than most people around him. And so it's this unique dichotomy, if you will, of a person that is kind of grandiose but able to kind of meet with you at the space you're in. And I think that's what happens when people get close to him. They see this personal connection. He gives that person his attention and kind of hears and listens and makes that person feel welcome. That's what I saw. Here at the convention, didn't get to necessarily run into him yet, but know that there's a lot of people that have and have kind of said something very similar. So that's something that's unique. And I'll tell you one other thing that I think your audience may appreciate. I got to go on stage with former SEAL Team 6 Commander Congressman Ryan Zinke from Montana, and what we talked about backstage is a piece that I don't think a lot of people hear. He's gotten to Congress and said, frankly, it's broken. This is a guy that has led his career kicking in doors and snapping up terrorists all over the world, who's inside Capitol Hill and saying this system that we can't get to work here. We can't do the work that the people have sent us to do. That's the reason he's supporting Donald Trump, is because there are obstacles in the way of good legislation and good people getting things done. And his view, this is a former SEAL Team 6 commander, his view is that a person like Donald Trump has got to kind of break the system down a little bit to let legislation, to refresh or reanimate the spirit of what we've elected our representatives to do. I thought that was something that made Donald Trump's kind of cause in general one that I think is very compelling, and not just for this generation, but for the people that are going to vote 2 and 3 elections down the road. Because what's happening in this election is the establishment is kind of breaking up, and it's leaving room for the market to weigh in, not just in this election, but in everyone after that. So for that reason, a lot of people have found that this is a movement that they are willing to really support, and I think that was something that is missed in the collective media, hype. So,
well, listen, I appreciate your perspective in coming on the show, folks. Check out again tumshirts.com. Check out Jason on Twitter at Jason R. Beardsley. That's Beardsley. I got to spell out the last names because Baradelli is hard to pronounce, pal. Jason, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate everything you're doing, and keep up the great work. We'll check in with you real soon.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. And, anytime Behind Enemy Lines wants to go there, I'm ready to go there with you. So you have a great day, and shout out to all your audience. God bless America.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks to you, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching. That was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwiddling, they do not want him dwiddling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, when Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Gene Baradelli, back behind any lines. Want to thank our buddy Jason Beardsley for coming on the show. Check out, oh my goodness, all the plugs. Check him out on Twitter at Jason R. Beardsley. That's with L-E-Y at the end. Jason R. Beardsley. Check out the Underground Movement at www.tumshirts.com. And of course, check out our friends at Concerned Veterans for America, cv4a.org. Whole lot of stuff going on with Jason Beardsley. I put into social media while the interview was